Hola amigos, in one of my earlier videos here in my Living in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico YouTube channel, I spoke about the pros and cons of living in Puerto Vallarta. Check out this video here on my channel. But how do you actually get to legally live in Puerto Vallarta, or any other place in Mexico for that matter? In other words, what visas are available to foreigners that allow them to live permanently in Mexico? Well, today I want to talk about what you need to do if you're thinking about moving to Puerto Vallarta or anywhere in Mexico, and about the different types of visas that allow you to live here full time. I think anyone who's thinking of making the move to Puerto Vallarta certainly needs to know about these. Stick around to the end of this video and I'll show you how to get a free digital copy of my buyer's guide to purchasing property in Mexico. So let's get after it. If this is the first time on our channel and you want to know everything there is to know about life and living in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and the market here, please give us a like on this and our other videos and subscribe to our channel below. The citizens of most countries don't need a visa to travel to Mexico, including citizens of Canada and the US. However, to live long-term in Mexico, you do need to have a legal visa. Mexico does have an immigration system that's pretty straightforward and easy to navigate, and it offers options for short-term tourists along with temporary and permanent options for foreigners who want to live in Puerto Vallarta for the long term. Even Mexican citizenship is relatively easy to obtain. If you want to live in Mexico, you won't need to make the visa runs that many other countries require. Reapply annually or keep large amounts of cash in the bank to qualify for continued residency. There are several ways to legally stay for just as long as you like. The first is a temporary visa. If you want to live in Puerto Vallarta for an extended period of time, there are two basic options. If you're from a visa-exempt country like the US and Canada, you can come as a visitor or visitante. You'll be able to stay for up to 6 months. Now, the immigration system has recently been computerized, so you no longer need to fill out any paperwork before you arrive. Just enter the country by land, sea, or air, and go to the immigration counter where the officer will stamp your passport with the length of time that you can remain in the country. Visitor permits may be valid for up to 180 days, but it isn't automatic. The length of stay that's granted is sometimes arbitrary. You may get the full 180 days or you may only get a few weeks. It's up to the immigration officer. Generally though, they do give you a 6-month visa when you arrive here in Puerto Vallarta. Keep in mind that a visitor permit can't be renewed or extended. If you want to ensure a full 6 months in the country, applying for a visitante visa at a Mexican consulate is the best way to go. Some folks who don't want to bother or can't financially qualify for a temporary or a permanent visa do what's known as a visa run. That means they leave the country every few months and return with a new tourist visa. Now, where once that was a popular way for foreigners to live in Mexico, now this practice is actively discouraged and Mexican immigration is clamping down on the practice. Fortunately though, Mexico has made it relatively easy to get visas that are valid for more than 6 months. Temporary resident visas, or residente temporal as they're known, are valid for up to 4 years. To get a 4-year temporary visa, you need to complete application paperwork and be aware that some of it is in Spanish. Then make an appointment to appear in person at a Mexican consulate in your own home country. You can schedule an appointment as well as complete some of the application paperwork online. If you're traveling to Mexico with adult family members or someone else, they will also need to schedule an appointment and submit their paperwork also. When you go to the Mexican consulate, you'll have an interview with a consulate officer. You'll be asked a few questions about why you want to live in Mexico, and you'll give them the required documentation. The documentation in part consists of bank statements showing that you can financially qualify for a temporary visa or a permanent visa. There are 4 principal routes to qualify for residency. Number 1, for temporary visa, on your bank statement, you need to show that you have a minimum monthly income in 2024, a regular income of at least $4,350 per month every month over the last 6 months. And some consulates even can request 12 months of statements. Or 2, hold a minimum balance in your personal savings or investments. For a temporary visa, you must have qualifying savings or investments showing account balances or balances totaling at least $73,200 US dollars over the last 12 months. The total must not fall below the minimum amount required at any time over the last 12 months. Or number 3, own a house in Mexico of a specific value. In 2024, the property has to have a minimum market value of 9,957,000 pesos. I know that scared you. You probably thought I was going to say dollars. That's pesos, which it's approximately 584,000 US dollars. And the property must be situated in Mexico. The property value must be free of any liens like debts, charges, or mortgages. Or lastly, 4, by making a specified capital investment in a Mexican company. You must make a capital investment of at least 4,978,600 Mexican pesos, which is approximately 293,000 US dollars. And the capital must be invested in one of a prescribed set of ways. Be aware that this capital investment application is considerably more complex than the applications made using the other 3 economic solvency routes. Now, what about applying for residency as a couple? Well, the good news is you don't need to demonstrate double the amount of income. So here's how that works. One spouse or partner needs to demonstrate income or a savings balance in the amounts that I talked about. So they are the principal applicant, plus an additional sum of income or savings balance equivalent to 100 times the minimum daily wage for the dependent spouse or partner. In 2024, the minimum daily wage in Mexico is 248 pesos, or approximately $14.60 US. Now that's daily minimum wage, not hourly minimum wage. So that's an additional amount of at least $1,460 US dollars per month that you would have to show to qualify your spouse. If you're approved, you'll get a visa in your passport either on the same day or within a day or 2. Now you've completed the first of 2 steps for getting your temporary visa. The visa you will get from the consulate is only valid for 180 days, so you'll need to go to Mexico before that expires. When you enter Mexico, make sure that the immigration official knows that you need a canje, it's a stamp, which indicates that your immigration status will be changing. Otherwise, you may just get a tourist visa, and that's what you don't want. Mexican bureaucracy can be long. It's advisable to set an appointment online with the Instituto Nacional de Migración, which is the Department of Immigration, at your destination before you leave your home country. Once you enter Mexico, you only have 30 days to report to immigration, or you'll need to leave the country and start the process all over again, and you really don't want to be doing that. When you report to the local immigration office, be sure to bring all the paperwork you are required to show at your home country's consulate, as well as the printed confirmation page of your immigration appointment and proof of your address in Mexico, called a comprobante. A utility bill works well for this. You'll have another short interview where the immigration official will verify that you meet the requirements for residency. Once you're approved, you'll pay a fee and receive your resident card that day or shortly thereafter. You'll now be allowed to legally remain in Mexico and travel abroad without having to reapply for a visa. If you want to work in Mexico, you'll need to have your employer request a temporary resident visa with a work permit. Individuals can't apply for this visa directly. Once your employer obtains the work permit, you'll have 15 to 30 days to apply for your Residente Temporal visa from a Mexican consulate abroad. The rest of the process is the same as for a standard Residente Temporal visa. As a temporary resident, you can import your foreign plated vehicle, get a driver's license, open a bank account, and buy into the IMSS, which is the National Healthcare Plan, or obtain medical services through the free INS-ABI healthcare system. In most parts of Mexico, if you're over the age of 60, you can also get a senior discount card called INAPAM, Instituto Nacional de las Personas Adultas Mayores. Though some states are apparently not granting these cards to non-Mexicans at the moment. If you're lucky enough to qualify, you'll get discounts on everything from transport and select restaurants to retail outlets, medical care, and even property taxes. You can also import your household goods duty-free one time. Okay, the next step is permanent residency. As the name implies, the Residente Permanente visa never expires. Once you have it, you can remain in Mexico for as long as you want and travel outside the country whenever you want. There are no requirements to stay in Mexico for any specified period of time, and the visa never needs to be renewed. Great stuff. It begins at a Mexican consulate abroad, just like the other one, and is finalized after you visit an Instituto Nacional de Migración, the Department of Immigration office in Mexico. The financial requirements to become a Residente Permanente are higher than those of temporary residency. For a permanent visa, you need to show a regular income of at least $7,300 per month, every month for the last 6 months. And again, some consulates may request 12 months of statements from you. Or 2, for a permanent visa, you must have qualifying savings or investments showing account balance or balances totaling at least $293,000 over the last 12 months. And the total again can't fall below the minimum amount required at any time over the last 12 months. The exception is if you have lived in Mexico as a temporary resident for 4 consecutive years. In that case, you can convert your temporary residency status to permanent residency. This is the very best course to take, in my opinion, as at the end of 4 years, temporary visa, you can switch it right over to a permanent visa. Of course, there will be a fee for that in most cases, without having to show any further financial statements, qualifications. So that's a cool way to go, I think. Besides all that, Mexican consulates are now requiring applicants to be retired to grant applications to permanent residency right away. As with your temporary residency, you'll need to make an appointment at a Mexican consulate abroad, go through the approval process and get the temporary stamp in your passport. You'll then need to, of course, report to the Department of Immigration at your destination within 30 days of entering Mexico to finalize your residency, just like I told you for the temporary visa. Permanent residents obviously are eligible to enroll in either the IMSS or INSABI national healthcare plans. If you're 6 years older, you can also qualify for the INAPAM senior discount cards in most Mexican states. Now, aside from voting, which is reserved for Mexican citizens, permanent residents have most of the same rights and responsibilities as anyone born and raised here in Mexico. So the only real difference between the temporary residency and the permanent residency visas, other than the length of the visa and the income requirements, concerns motor vehicles. Now, while temporary residents, as I said before, can import their foreign plated vehicle, permanent residents who want to own a vehicle are expected to purchase it in Mexico. So you can't bring your vehicle down from the States or Canada if you're a permanent resident. Nationalizing, or in other words, legalizing a foreign plated vehicle is sometimes possible depending on the make, model and year, but it's a very complicated process. In fact, it's a real pain in the you-know-what, and I wouldn't advise it at all. As with temporary residency, you can also import your household goods duty-free one time if it's done within 6 months of your formal entrance to Mexico. Now, as I said earlier, the Residente Permanente visa is primarily considered to be a retirement visa. And so it's assumed that the individual will not be employed in Mexico. In fact, during the application process, you will be asked to provide a letter in the Mexican consulate that acknowledges that you are aware that you're not allowed to work in Mexico. However, as with a lot of things in Mexico, it may be possible to receive permission to work as a permanent resident by registering with the Servicio de Administración Tributaria, which is the SAT office, and informing immigration of your intentions within 90 days of starting work. Your last option is Mexican citizenship. Mexico allows for dual citizenship, so you don't have to surrender your US or Canadian passport to become a Mexican citizen, and you'll have certain rights that would not otherwise be available to you as a temporary or a permanent resident. For example, you can buy property in restricted areas in your own name, including property near a beach or an international border, for which you have to get a fideicomiso for that. I mentioned in one of my other videos, and the deed of the property that you buy is held in trust by a Mexican bank. And you don't have to do that fideicomiso if you're a Mexican citizen. You can also vote in Mexico and do not need to inform the immigration office if you move or change jobs. Citizenship also grants you the right to earn an income or own a business with the same benefits as a natural-born citizen. To apply for citizenship, you'll need to have lived in Mexico for at least 5 consecutive years as a legal permanent resident, or 2 years with legal residency if you're married to a Mexican national, or have a child who was born in Mexico. You also need to have been physically in Mexico for at least 18 months during the 24 months prior to your application for citizenship. So there are those requirements. Now, I know this is a long video and a lot of information to take in. If it was informative and helped you understand the various type of Mexican visas that you can apply for, please give me a like or comment below on this video, and please be sure to subscribe to our channel below. If you have any questions about visas or anything you've heard in the video today, please feel free to email me, text me, call me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have and help you with that smooth move to Puerto Vallarta. If you'd like to have a copy of my digital buyer's guide to purchasing property in Mexico, please click on the link below this video and I'll email it to you right away. Until the next time, I'll show you around town.